Welcome back, everyone. We're doing a deep dive today on the space economy.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah, and we've got this great article from FinShots
Okay.
to help us kind of figure out, is space the next frontier for global growth?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that really jumped out at me right at the top of the article was that NASA generated 3 times its budget last year.
Wow.
Just to put that in perspective, that's enough money to buy Spotify.
Wow.
Or fund India's entire defense budget. Crazy.
Yeah, that is a lot of money. So that's got to make you wonder, what is driving this financial boom in space? What's going on?
Yeah, that was my exact thought. I was like, what is happening? So I'm curious, what do you make of that?
Well, I think NASA's success is a really good indicator of a big shift that's happening.
Okay.
It's not just government agencies that are fueling the space economy anymore.
Right.
We're seeing private companies, investors, even entire nations starting to recognize the vast potential out there. It's almost like a modern day gold rush, but for space.
For the stars, yeah. So let's get a little more specific here.
Okay.
When we say the space economy, what exactly are we talking about? I mean, we all picture rockets and astronauts, right?
Yeah.
But this article seemed to argue that the impact of the space economy is being felt much closer to home.
Absolutely, you're right. I mean, think about something as simple as GPS. You use it for everything, like getting around with Uber.
Oh, yeah.
Or tracking shipments, even predicting the weather.
Right.
All of that relies on space technology. It's woven into our lives, even if we don't always realize it. And that's just the beginning, really. Projections show that by 2035, 2/3 of the space economy will actually be focused on Earth-based applications.
Wow. So it's not even just about going out there and exploring and doing science. It's actually about improving life here on Earth.
Exactly. It's about using what we learn and what we develop in space to make things better down here.
Okay, that's fascinating. Speaking of competition, though, who are the big players in this? Who's leading the charge in this new space economy?
Well, it's probably no surprise that the U.S. and China are investing heavily.
Mm-hmm.
But what's really exciting is the rise of all these new players. Since the early 2000s, the number of space agencies has almost doubled. It's gone from 40 to 75.
Oh, wow. So it's not just the superpowers anymore.
Exactly. Even the UAE has jumped in, sending a probe to Mars and an astronaut to the International Space Station. It's becoming clear that space is no longer this exclusive club.
Yeah. That's really interesting. So many more opportunities now for different countries, for different people. This article specifically calls out satellite internet as a real potential game changer.
Yes.
What makes that so important? Why is that such a big deal?
Well, think about it this way. Satellite internet has the potential to bring the internet to people who don't have access to it right now.
Okay.
Particularly in those remote areas that lack the infrastructure for traditional internet connections.
Right.
I mean, companies like SpaceX and Amazon, they're really going all in on this. The projection is that this sector alone could reach $218 billion by 2035. Just think about it. Imagine a world where everyone, no matter where they live, has access to affordable and reliable, high-speed internet. I mean, it could revolutionize things like education in remote areas, enable telemedicine on a global scale, even empower new online businesses to emerge.
So for our listeners, they're thinking, okay, cheaper, faster, better internet.
Exactly. Who wouldn't want that?
Yeah, so many possibilities there. But, I can't help but think, with all this rapid growth, doesn't that come with some risks as well?
Oh, absolutely. It's not all sunshine and roses. There are definitely some challenges that we need to be aware of. And this article dives into a few of them.
Yeah, it does. And one that really kind of makes me nervous is this whole issue of space debris.
Yeah, I can see why. It's a growing problem. I mean, the more we put up there, the more crowded it gets. And the higher the risk of collisions.
So paint me a picture here. How bad is it? What are we talking about?
Well, right now there are over 34,000 pieces of debris larger than 10 centimeters hurtling through space at insane speeds.
Wow.
And that's not even counting the millions of smaller pieces that we can't even track. And every single one of those pieces poses a threat to operational satellites and even to manned spacecraft. Think about it. Even a small collision could create a cascade of debris.
Like a domino effect.
Exactly. But on a cosmic scale, it's a serious issue.
So what can we do about it? Is anybody working on solutions for this?
Well, there are some really smart people out there trying to tackle this problem.
Okay.
The European Space Agency, for example, is working on debris removal technologies, and a number of private companies are developing advanced collision avoidance systems.
That makes sense. So it's like cleaning up what's already there and then trying to avoid making it worse.
Yeah, exactly. It's a two-pronged approach, but it's still early days, and there's a lot more work to be done.
Yeah, it sounds like a really tricky problem to solve. The article also talks about the need for new rules, for updated regulations in space.
Right. That's crucial too.
Why? Why is that so important?
Because the current rules, they just haven't kept pace with how quickly things are changing up there.
Right.
We need clearer guidelines for managing space traffic, for mitigating debris, even for things like resource extraction.
Oh, yeah.
If we want to make sure that space is sustainable and equitable for everyone, we need rules that reflect the realities of this new space age.
So without these new rules, is it just going to be like a free-for-all?
It could be, yeah. And that could create a lot of problems. Think about it. It would be harder for new companies to enter the market, and there's a real risk of unfair practices taking hold. It raises a big question. How do we balance encouraging innovation with making sure that everyone plays by the rules and that space remains a shared resource for all of humanity?
Yeah, it's a tough question for sure. And speaking of potential problems, the article also raises this whole issue of cybersecurity.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, I mean, satellites are becoming more and more central to our lives, right? I mean, communication, finance, even defense, all rely on these satellites. So they become prime targets, don't they?
Yes, they do. And a successful cyber attack on a satellite system, that could be devastating.
Yeah.
It could disrupt global communications. It could cripple financial markets. It could even compromise national security.
That's a scary thought.
It is. It's something we need to take very seriously.
It is. It is. So with all this potential, all these challenges, where does a country like India fit into this picture?
Well, India is actually emerging as a really significant player in the space economy. Over the last decade, space activities have contributed $24 billion to the Indian economy.
Wow.
And ISRO, India's space agency, has set this really ambitious goal of capturing 10% of the global space economy by 2040.
That's impressive. But, one of the things the article also brings up is this issue of equity.
Right.
How do we make sure that all the benefits of this amazing technology are shared by everyone?
Yeah.
Not just the wealthy few.
That's a really important point. If we're not careful, the space economy could end up exacerbating existing inequalities.
Right.
The last thing we want is for space to become just another arena where the global wealth gap widens. We need to make sure that there are policies in place, that there's international collaboration to make sure that everyone has access to the resources and the opportunities that space has to offer.
So it sounds like we're really at a crossroads here. I mean, on the one hand, we have this incredible potential for positive change.
Yes.
On the other hand, we have the risk of repeating some of the same mistakes that we've made in the past. So what do you see as the key takeaway here? What should we be focusing on as we move forward?
I think the biggest takeaway is that the space economy isn't something that's just happening to us. It's something that we are actively shaping. It's a really powerful idea, right? We have the chance to do things differently this time.
Okay, so it's not destiny, it's a choice.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what are some of the things we could choose? What are some of the big opportunities that we could be focusing on?
Well, this article mentions a few, and one that really stood out to me is this whole idea of actively removing space debris.
Oh, yeah.
Like, imagine if we could actually clean up our orbital environment.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, it would make space travel much safer and more sustainable.
And what about satellite internet? You mentioned that earlier.
Right. That's another huge opportunity.
Like, what if we could actually use that to connect everyone on the planet?
I mean, think about the possibilities.
Yeah.
Affordable, high-speed internet access for everyone, even in the most remote corners of the globe.
It would be a game changer.
It really would.
I mean, education, healthcare, economic development, so many things would be transformed.
Absolutely. We could break down so many barriers.
And, of course, we can't forget about the potential for just incredible scientific discoveries.
Oh, right.
I mean, space exploration has always pushed the boundaries of human knowledge. It's inspired us to think bigger, to dream bigger.
It's the ultimate frontier of scientific curiosity.
So what are some of the big mysteries that we could be solving out there?
Well, there are so many. I mean,
Yeah.
everything from studying distant galaxies to searching for signs of life beyond Earth.
The big questions.
Yeah, the really big ones.
Okay, so we've got all this amazing potential, but what about something a little bit closer to home? What about space tourism? Is that something that we're actually going to see in our lifetime?
I think so, yeah.
Why?
I mean, it's still early days, but it's gaining momentum.
Okay.
Companies like Virgin Galactic and Blue Origin are already offering some orbital flights.
Oh, wow. So people are actually going up there.
They are, yeah.
What's it like?
Well, from what I've heard, it's pretty amazing. You
Yeah.
get to experience weightlessness. You get to see the Earth from space.
I can't even imagine.
It's supposed to be truly awe-inspiring.
Okay, so how much does a ticket cost?
Well, that's the catch.
Yeah.
It's still incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
Right now, it's really only accessible to the ultra-wealthy.
Which brings us back to that equity issue.
Right?
Exactly.
Like, how do we make sure that this isn't just a playground for the rich and famous?
It's a valid concern.
Yeah.
As space tourism develops, we need to make sure that it benefits everyone.
It's like any new frontier.
Mm-hmm.
There's a risk of repeating the mistakes of the past.
Right.
We need to be intentional about making space exploration inclusive and accessible to all of humanity.
I couldn't agree more.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We've talked about the incredible potential of the space economy, the very real challenges that come with it, and the need for responsible innovation and international collaboration. So as we kind of wrap up this part of our deep dive, what are your final thoughts on where we go from here? What's next for humanity in space?
Well, it really does feel like we're at this pivotal moment,
Yeah.
For centuries, we've looked up at the stars and we've dreamed of exploring the cosmos. And now it's like that dream is actually becoming a reality.
Right. It's incredibly exciting, but it's a huge responsibility.
Yeah. And I think that's what I keep coming back to is it's like this amazing opportunity, but we have to get it right.
We do, yeah.
We can't mess this up.
It's not just about us anymore, right?
No, exactly. It's about the future.
It's about the future of humanity. It's about, what kind of legacy we leave behind.
Yeah. Yeah. And so as we wrap up this deep dive, I kind of want to leave our listeners with something to think about.
Okay.
We've talked about the potential of the space economy, the challenges, the need for responsibility, for collaboration. So knowing all of that, what kind of future do you envision for humanity in space? And what role do you see yourself playing in it?
That's a big question.
It is a big question.
But it's a good one. It's one that we should all be asking ourselves, I think.
Yeah.
Because the future of space, it's not predetermined. It's something that we're all creating together.
And maybe our listeners will be the ones out there developing those groundbreaking technologies, shaping those policies, making those incredible scientific discoveries.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or maybe their role will be a little closer to home.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll be advocating for responsible space exploration. Maybe they'll be raising awareness about the importance of equity and access to space resources.
Right.
Or maybe they'll just be sharing their passion for space with others, inspiring the next generation of explorers and dreamers.
It all matters.
It does. It all matters. And I think the really exciting thing is that no matter what your interests are, no matter what your skills are, there's a place for you in this story.
Absolutely.
The future of space, it belongs to all of us.
And that's what makes it so exciting, right?
It does.
It's this vast, uncharted territory full of possibilities.
Yeah. Well, this has been a fantastic deep dive. I've learned a lot. I'm sure our listeners have too.
Me too.
And I think it's safe to say that the future of space is bright. And I, for one, can't wait to see what we accomplish out there.
Me neither.